throws, and it's intercepted. It's intercepted by number 22. That's Clifton. He's got the left edge. Turns on the Jets. Still on his feet. Touchdown, Calaveras. What a play. Up to a running back. That's Ferrante over to the right side. He comes back up the middle. He's got room. One man to beat. He turns on the Jets. There he goes. Touchdown, Calaveras. What a play.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk Football with Coach Val. I'm your host, Gil Valtiera, the voice of Calaveras football. This episode, we dive into a new topic, which is a day in the life of an NFL referee. I cannot be more excited to have both Pat Morelli, legendary California high school football official, and his cousin, former NFL official, Mr. Pete Morelli, here with me today. Pat, Pete, thank you both very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here today.
You're welcome, Gil. It's nice to be here, but usually people don't cheer us. It's the opposite.
Officials don't get cheered like that very often, do they? You have to wait till retirement.
That was a good welcoming committee. I like that.
All right. Well, some background for our listeners. I know our constant listeners out there, our loyal ones, remember Pat just a couple of weeks ago. And as promised, he's back today with his cousin, former NFL official, Mr. Pete Morelli. Pete, why don't you tell us about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school? Give us a little background.
Yeah, I grew up in Stockton. I come from a Italian family, a big family, actually. My father had 6 brothers and 2 sisters. And I went to Annunciation Grammar School, St. Mary's High School, on to St. Mary's College, Moraga, graduated from there, went on to the University of the Pacific, did some graduate work there, and then went on to get an administrative credential through Cal State Stanislaus. So that's been my educational background. Yeah, I played football at St. Mary's High School, played baseball there, and at St. Mary's College, I went there on a baseball scholarship, started that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
So lots of background in the Stockton area. Pat gave us some background that a couple of weeks ago. So besides, I mean, the first thing I think of NFL referee, I'm thinking you probably didn't open up the classifieds in the Stockton Record and circled NFL referee won it and said, oh yeah, let me answer that ad, right?
That's right. You know, I started with my father was a high school football official. So was his brothers, Joe and Tony. About 1970, I was a sophomore at St. Mary's College. The local association decided they were going to form a cruise. So the brothers got together and said, let's get together and see if the youngsters, myself and my cousin Bill would join. So we had a crew of 5 Morellis, and we had one outsider named Mr. Zittich, John Zittich, and he was our not Italian official. But so I would come home on weekends, and I started doing high school officiating then. My uncle had me, and I was a head linesman. And he recognized that I was pretty decent at rules, and pretty soon he had me referee the sophomore game while they sat down and watched us work. So I worked with them for 4 or 5 years, and when they retired, I continued my high school career in the Sac-Joaquin section. Yeah.
So your high school officiating all in the Sac-Joaquin section?
All in the Sac-Joaquin section, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, was there like an outreach? Did you proactively say, I'm gonna look at something here?
I was doing the local high school, and we had a great commissioner named Stan Pavko, and he liked me. And he was assigning junior college at the time, so he had Delta College and Modesto College as part of his assigning group. So he assigned me to some junior college games, and as I was progressing up, I became a referee and a crew chief at 24. So I was one of the youngest ever to become a crew chief. And that same year, he needed a referee for a big game, Delta against West Hills, and they were nationally known junior college at the time. So the game was officiated, and we did that game at University of the Pacific. And so I started my junior college career too. So I started doing high school on Fridays and then junior college on Saturdays. And through junior college, I worked my way. I went into the Central Valley Conference, it extended up through Fresno area, Coalinga, all that way. And then later I got into the CVC, which was called the Central Valley Conference, or the collegiate, COA actually, the Collegiate Officials Association. And that was another junior college conference out of the Bay Area, which extended all the way to Monterey and up all the way to Humboldt. And along with that, they also assigned Division II football. And, UC Davis, Sac State, Menlo, Hayward State, San Francisco State, St. Mary's College, Santa Clara. So we had had an opportunity, doing junior college, then the next opportunity to move up to Division II. So it was, so that's kind of how it was progressing up and through that time. So I started in 1980, and about 1988, I finally got to the Division I conference, and that was the Big West. And all those years, I was attempting to try to get into the Pac-12, or now at that time was the Pac-8, and I kept trying out and never was selected. So they had a lot of officials, so it wasn't easy to get into that conference. But I finally made it to the Big West.
So it's quite a territory. I mean, you're almost traveling all through Northern California at all the different schools, high school, junior colleges.
Yeah, I was working Friday nights, working Saturdays, traveling. And, you have to have a supportive family, and my wife was very supportive of me doing that. Had 2 boys at the time, and, trying to juggle them and my wife and, a career and education at the same time. I started in Linden High School as a teacher, and then I went over to St. Mary's High School later. I started as a dean and became principal. I was principal for 25 years and then became president of the school, too. Concluded my career there.
Wow. Yeah. So you Mark Miller from Linden?
Mark Miller was the football coach. Mike Zachlin was the basketball coach. I was his JV basketball coach for a number of years there in Linden. Yeah, I spent 10 years there.
I know Coach Miller well. I actually coached with him early 2000s.
Yeah, and then Bob Ammerman. They're legendary guys, who from that area. And, of course, we came up here, the big games were Calaveras and Bret Hart and all these games in Somerville. It was fun. It was good times.
It's going to be interesting because the mother logo did some realignment, reshifting from the CIF, so it's going to be interesting moving forward.
Right.
So, Pete, tell me, was the NFL always the goal, or was it just kind of...
The goal was to get to Division I football, and I was excited about that opportunity. I was working, Big West was a great opportunity, but, there were bigger conferences, and you were always hoping, to get to, the Pac-12 was the conference at the time, that's what you wanted to be in. And, I was, doing these games, and like I told you earlier, I was working in the COA, and I was doing a game at St. Mary's College. And at that time, I was refereeing a lot at Division II and junior college. That particular day, and I was in the Big West at that time, so I was kind of also a college official, both at Division I and Division II, and I was doing those type of games. I was doing the St. Mary's Santa Clara game, and I was the head referee that day and had a mic on. A scout came, and he was looking at Bill Levy. Bill Levy lived in San Jose and later became a referee too, a white hat. But he was there to scout Bill, and he was impressed with my work. And he came in the locker room after the game and said, "Pete, you did a great job. We're going to get you an application." So I never was on the radar. I was discovered doing that game. They still have scouts. It's still part of the NFL process. They go out and look for people. People recommend others, so that process is still out there. Wow. So I finally got the application, and one of the requirements was you had to have a minimum of 5 years of Division I officiating. So I was, beginning my Division I career there, and I think I had, that was about 1991. So I'd been in Division I about 3 years, so I didn't really qualify to go to the NFL right away. But I didn't know the process. Process was they sent us an application, and every year from the NFL, all they asked for was our schedule, our football schedule throughout the year. And they would scout and watch you, and you never knew where they were showing up. So as my career went on, I finally moved over from the Big West to the Western Athletic Conference, the WAC. And at that time, the WAC was a large conference, had 16 schools. And I went over as a referee from the Big West. I was refereeing there, the head guy, to the WAC as a referee. And that particular year, I was only there 1 year. I had 14 college games. They sent scouts to 12 of mine.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how then finally I got notified by the league that they were interested in me. They wanted to make me a finalist. So you're an active official on their list. They watch you, or you don't know if they're interested. They keep watching. If they're not, they just, you go away. But when you become a finalist, then they're serious about you. And so when I became a finalist, I had to go through an FBI background check, which they go through the neighborhood and they do all your taxes and all your personal information. Then I went for a psychological profile test in Santa Clara, actually San Francisco, and so you go through a few hours of testing, and they test to see if you're under pressure and different things, and they interview you. So sometimes guys don't even pass those two criteria.
See if you can handle being screamed at without
that, or if you can handle pressure, because they gave us some time tests and see what you're going to do.
Right.
And then the background check, you have to, we knew a great official from our local area just happened to have a line of credit at Tahoe, and he got disqualified from the FBI background check because of the gambling implication.
Wow.
So things can happen. Then I was sent back to New York and went through an interview process. So I was interviewed by the director of officiating at that time was Jerry Seaman, some other supervisors in the NFL. They had some league representatives in there from the office. So, they see if they're, you're compatible. And at that time, the NFL had a league in Europe called NFL Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And right there at the desk, Jerry Seaman said, "Pete, are you interested in going to Europe?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "We've been sending you an application, but you haven't responded about Europe." I said, "Where have you been sending?" They had the wrong address.
Oh, wow.
So we got that straightened out. So I went to Europe, and they had teams in Barcelona, Scotland, London, 2 in Germany. And what you would do is you'd form a crew, and you'd fly over on Thursday, you'd work a game on Saturday or Sunday, stay the entire week in Europe, referee another game, and fly home. And it would be 2 sets of games generally while you were there. And when I was there, I did 2 games, didn't even throw a flag. And the next thing you know, I got a phone call one afternoon from Jerry Seaman. He said, "Welcome to the National Football League, Pete."
Wow.
And when I was there in the league in Europe, we used to get these numbers like they wear in the league office, what they wear on the field. So I was 135 in the league, and we all knew if you if you had the high number, you probably weren't getting in. But if you had a low number, you're going to come into the league. So I was excited to see what number I was going to get. And when my number arrived for my regular season, it was still 135. So I didn't know if they thought I was going to make it or not. So they left me with that same number. But no one else has ever worn that number, so it's kind of a unique thing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I got to do that. And after working the first year in Europe, I was in the NFL, and I can tell you about that. But I went back. They were going to make me a referee. After my second game in the league, Jerry called and said, "Pete, we're making you a referee down the road." So they knew that I was going to become a white hat. So I went back to Europe for 7 more years, teaching and being the head referee over there. And I worked a couple of what they used to have what they called a World Bowl, and that was the end of the year championship game. So I did a couple of those games as a referee too.
When you finally got that call, were you pretty excited?
I was very excited, and I can tell you, he told me not to tell anyone for a while, but of course I had to go tell my father. My dad, was an official, and I remember, poor guy, he was out there working on one of his rentals, and so I drove up, and he was there, and he was excited for me.
I bet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you mentioned earlier, I want to go back just a little bit because you mentioned about the whole juggling act, and I'm glad you brought that up. I was an off-campus coach for 24 years. I spent on the sideline coaching high school football, also juggling a full-time job, all that stuff, so I totally get that. But you were principal at St. Mary's High School while you were officiating in the NFL, right?
Yes.
How did you handle like the logistics of you get assigned, say, a Monday night game on the East Coast, and all of a sudden you got to be back at school in California on Monday? I mean, you want to talk about a commute.
Yeah, it was a commute. But you learned the league had rules. First of all, one of the rules is you can't work in the same city without you can't have the same team without 8 weeks in between. And the other rule is you had to be in a different city every week. So you would rarely see the same teams. But generally what I would do is Friday night I would be at the football game, and Saturday morning, one of the rules I would set up, and when I started, I worked with Ed Hockley. He was the famous guy with the muscles. He was my first referee. And the rules were take the first flight out in the morning, get to the city as you can Saturday. So I would get up at 3, 4 in the morning, catch the first flight out of Sacramento Airport, and then we would arrive. And an hour after the last person arrived, we'd have our meeting and it'd be a 2.5 hour pregame meeting prior to the game. And once the game was over on Sunday, rushed right to the airport and flew home. And I was, getting home 1 or 2 in the morning, but I'd be at school at 6:30 every Monday. I never missed. As the league got more of the years as I was in it, games started expanding. It used to be simple, Sunday night game or a Monday night game and Sunday afternoons. Then it became Thursdays and all these extra things.
Right.
But anyways, a Monday night game, I'd leave on Sunday and just come home Tuesday and be at school. It's just I had a great staff. I was very organized about what I was doing at school.
All the logistics.
All the logistics and stuff. And so, it was a great. Then school was good to me too. Let me tell you, they were very supportive of this career that I was doing.
That's great. I mean, I think Pat, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the specific kind of job somebody has to have if they want to have to be able to pursue something like this.
Absolutely.
Well,
Flexibility
it's
is
tough.
key.
In high school when I was teaching, you can get out of school and do a high school game, and it wasn't a big deal. But now it's not that simple. Not many guys can get done at 4 to 3 o'clock. And,
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and in the old days, games high school didn't start till 6 o'clock, 5:30. Now they're starting earlier and going longer.
Yeah. So, Pete, besides juggling work and football, Pat, a couple of weeks ago informed us on the great family you guys come from, the impact that you've all had in the Stockton community. How'd you handle juggling, father, husband, cousin, and trying to keep family time a priority during all of this busy time for you?
Well, you have to understand that when the season it's very demanding. They expect a lot from you. We would do weekly tests, we had film to watch, and you had to maintain your physical ability. So you had to find a gym every day. So it was a grind. You had to really be organized, and the family was good. I tried to coach my sons as much as I could when they were younger. My wife was a teacher, and we both had our parents who were around to help with the two boys too at times. But I knew you had to when the seasons were over. I was totally with the family. You had to give up, all the extra things you wanted to do, like
right.
playing golf or, doing other things, so you had to balance it. You had to give back.
You had to give back and kind of make up for some lost time.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of lost time there.
Right.
I was in the league for 22 years. And of course, as I totaled up my high school and college career, I was I did 49 years of football officiating.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a pretty extensive career.
That's a long time.
Long time, yeah.
So let's move forward from there. Super Bowl 36, February 3rd, 2002. You're on the field as a field judge. What's a field judge responsibilities?
Well, a field judge is the deep official, deep on the side, and your main responsibility is for the receivers. And, you have all the 7 receivers. You would be responsible for particularly 1 or 2 of them as they go out in patterns. And the game was physical. These games, as a receiver, you have to there's so many judgments to be made every snap. Is it holding? Is it not holding? Is that pass interference? Not pass interference? Is that grabbing? Is that enough? Not enough? It's a decision every second. And
sure.
We have and the NFL game is different. It's tough. You don't have chuck rules. You have a 5-yard belt. You had to learn all these variations. And when I did the Super Bowl, it was only in my 5th year. I was the fastest you can get a Super Bowl because you're only eligible for a Super Bowl after 5 years of experience.
Wow.
And so I got it in my 5th year, which was, pretty nice. And it was a great experience. So, and I had the game, also I was under the goalpost when Adam Vinatieri kicked the winning field goal. So I had a little fame in that game. And also I made there was a tough call in the end zone in that game where I think Brady threw a touchdown pass, and I can't remember the receiver's name, and made a tight catch, and I ruled it a touchdown. I went to review, and it stood.
Right.
So
right.
He get kind of excited about that. Yeah. It was a great experience, let me tell you.
So when for me, when I watched the Super Bowl, just we watched, the Niners in a tight game just a couple days ago. Arguably the largest sporting event in the world. Everybody's watching. As an official, or when you're on the field where you're about to get going, are you nervous, or are you more like the athletes where they're kind of hyper focused?
No, you're nervous. You're excited. I mean, you go in, you go in about 4 days earlier in the game, and believe it or not, I mean, you go through everything, and they even take us for a day practice the coin toss. So every detail is prepared. Once again, when you're on the field before the game, there are so many people there, and you go, my God, where all these people come from? Because there's just celebrities and this and that. And our Super Bowl U2, what is it? Bono was the halftime show, so It was a big deal. And the game I was in, it was in New Orleans. But once the game started, it all cleared out. People were gone on the side, and it was a football game.
Right.
And it's what I was trained to do, and it was all football.
So it's a little nervous while all the hoopla's going on.
But once the ball's kicked off,
in,
it's football, and you do your job, that you're prepared for and you've trained for.
It's funny that you mentioned celebrities, because my next question for you was, there's an old famous story Joe Montana told when back on, I think it was 1980, Super Bowl against the Cincinnati Bengals, and they're down one score. They're trying to go on that final drive to go win the Super Bowl, and he gets into the huddle, and everybody's huddled up, and he goes, hey, look over there. Isn't that John Candy? and all the team, kind of stops and looks over and goes, hey, that is John Candy. And they all start laughing. Have you ever been starstruck while you've been out there?
You see people all the time on the sidelines. You walk by, there's Mariah Carey, just standing there, or, some other celebrity, who follows their team. Yeah, you do. You do. Yeah. In one of the games I did, President Bush was the father was at the game, and he was currently the president, and he came out to do the coin toss. And generally, the referee is the only one can do a coin toss, but in this particular game, since he's the president of the United States, they're going to let him do the coin toss. And probably about that year before, it was the infamous the Thanksgiving Day game with referee Phil Luckett and Jerome Bettis had the coin toss fiasco. Remember where they had the controversy? I said, yeah. So we're doing this game, and they allowed the president to flip the coin. He asked what the team wanted. He flipped the coin, and I think it was Pittsburgh and New England, and Pittsburgh was visiting team, and they said heads, and it came up tails, and he said Pittsburgh wins. and the referee just started to do what the president, I said, wait a minute, stop, look at the coin. And because at that time we would catch it, or hit. And so we corrected ourselves out there without many people knowing that.
Without
Yeah.
Right.
So I saw the president,
And that was senior, right?
Senior.
Bush senior.
Bush senior, yeah.
Bush senior,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Now, if I remember correctly, that game, the Rams were heavily favored because they had that whole greatest show on turf.
Yeah, the game I did.
Great offensive team out there. And being a field judge, all those receivers, do referees recognize schemes and before going in the game? Okay, my gosh, these guys go 5 wide and throw it every time.
Yeah.
We got to be ready for this.
We prepare. We scout. We have all the game. We have game films and film.
So you guys watch film?
We watch film and watch their patterns. What plays they like to run. Near the goal line, do they run pick plays? Where they pick a guy off. So we prepared for that. Of course, I had the other team. They had Lawyer Malloy. They had, Bill Belichick put a tough defense together, and they were right on the verge of always within the rules of how much they can grab and hold, and it was a very difficult game, actually.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
And then everybody, kind of remembers that game as that was the beginning.
That was the beginning of the dynasty.
Right.
Yeah. It was Tom Brady's first win. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Right. Of 7 Super Bowls.
Exactly.
Right. Amazing. So you retired from officiating in the NFL. It's been, 20 years? 20?
I did 22 years on the field in the NFL, yeah.
Okay. And so Pat tells me now you retire. You retired also from school, from administration?
I'm retired from school. I have a family business with my sons. We work a family business called Morelli Properties.
Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so Pat tells me you guys golf a few times a week together.
We do.
Who gets the best of who out on the course?
No, we're good friends. We just visit. We ride in the cart and laugh half the time, and and just talk. We talk and throw 2 balls down and whatever we want to do. And yeah, that's good. Pick it up and away we go. Yeah, it was fun.
You ever catch them cheating?
Never. No, not Pat.
Do you just carry around yellow flags and throw it at each other when you're out there?
No, we do. When we play with some of these slow guys that we have, we give signals like delay of game or something. They're taking too much time over the ball.
Oh boy, that is funny.
You got to have fun when you're out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I went golf, you went golfing with me, you better. Yeah, you're gonna have to have a real good sense of humor.
A game you love to hate to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get 1 or 2 good shots each game that keeps me coming back, and that's about it.
That's right. It's like a drink, makes you come back for more.
So, Pete, finally, I have some random questions that, some may seem silly, but I thought, if I'm out there and one of our listeners out there listening,
Sure.
They might want to know, the answers to some of these. So, one of them is, have you ever been legitimately afraid for your safety? Like, holy smokes, that guy almost just ran me over. Or
I've gotten hit a couple times. Once really bad in college, but a couple times in the NFL. And it's just the one time I was hit. It was a kickoff, and I ran in, and there's a fumble on the play. And generally, you want to dive in and decide who has the ball. The rule of thumb is the survival of the fittest. So they fight under there, whoever has the ball. But the officials have to get in and determine who has it. For some reason, I don't know why I was doing this. Usually, the white hats, we stand back and like to do the signal and be very precise, and But I jumped in this scrum head first, and this kid got up excited with the ball and hit me in the jaw. I think I had a concussion. I was seeing stars. It knocked me backwards. My hat went off. All the microphones flew off.
wow.
And Harbaugh was coaching San Francisco at that time. He goes, "Pete, get up. You're good. You're fine." So it was funny. Yeah, it wasn't funny, but I was hurt for a moment there.
So that was like even after the play was over. I mean,
That's
you were
right.
just kind of going into the scrum.
Yeah, I was just going into the scrum. Yeah. So a lot of times, we're as a referee, we stand behind the offensive line, but if you have an interception, the game turns and they're running right at you, and these big guys are coming. And they're strong and they're huge.
Yeah, I mean,
you want to get the heck out of the way if you can.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, 6'5". You look at some of the
I bumped into a few of
rosters.
them. It hurts.
You're just bumping into
Just
them?
bumping into them, it hurts. Yeah, they're big men.
What about during a live play where guys are just flying, running, different angles? You ever get it wrong? Like, whoa, watch out there.
My position was always deep. Because I had primary responsibility was action on the quarterback. So we would stay back. We had a lot of, there's 7 officials on the field, and you got 22 guys running around. And, I had a lot, half the line of scrimmage plus the quarterback to watch on every play. So you had to be mobile, and moving your head and keeping alert. So you never were standing still. And so, no, I was never that, close to, being hurt or anything like that.
Well, that's good.
But we'd run a lot. They would the league wanted to analyze how far we would run. So they would put GPS monitors on our shirts. And one game I did 8 miles.
Wow.
But on an average, it would be between 6 and 7 miles a game. And they would tell you how much you sprint. And the game I did the 8 miles was up in Mile High Stadium in Denver. And it was tough, running up and down the field,
Thin air up there, yeah.
Yeah, it was tough, yeah. So you're moving. People don't realize how much we move on during a game.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot in that time.
So do you still watch a lot of football now?
Yeah, I watch as a fan now.
Okay.
When I first watched it, I used to be more of a referee and be very technical. I'd like to play and look at the my position and roll back to play. Now it's just a fan, turn in, listen to the announcers and kind of. And, a lot of them I worked with, and a lot of new guys are coming into the league too. Yeah.
So I know one question a lot of people must ask you is the differences between the game back when you were officiating it and then now the game as a fan that you're watching now, especially around, what do you think about where instant replay has gone?
Instant replay has grown a lot. It's hard to be precise in instant replay. They've developed where they can almost. They've got to a point where they decide, whatever the call on the field is, that's where that's your baseline. When it first started, it was all over the place. They were trying to define what a catch was. As you remember, over the years, a catch, like Des Bryant in a game with Green Bay, and Steratore was a referee, and he went to replay and came back and said it touched the ground, it's incomplete. Well, then now 2 years later, it's a catch. They look at plays. So they have a baseline now that, you have a ruling on the field. Can the ruling be overturned? So it's good. For easy calls, if they make stepping on a line or something, it's good to, have the basic stuff. But it became very technical.
Right.
The more you want to put replay into the game. So, it makes the game harder to, analyze, because more people kind of want more things to be reviewed. Roughing the passer, is that enough for, it should have been called, shouldn't have been called. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, there's certain things, I think the league's, trying not to, have replay for everything.
Right. The games would be 5 hours long.
Most of these fouls are judgments. Everything you see is that there's an element of judgment in all these calls,
Right.
And, like in the last Super Bowl, there was a call for horse collar. Now, you could have some people say, that wasn't enough. But, by technicality, grabbed, the inside jersey behind the neck, near the nameplate, his knees buckled a little bit. I'll go with a call. But that's a judgment.
Right.
Somebody, if he didn't call it, people would say, why didn't he call it? So there's a judgment. It's real gray. There's a little gray in there.
Yeah, I always thought it had to be in, grasping the shoulder pads, and here he's grasping the jersey.
The jersey they added the jersey. Used to be inside, and then it became the
jersey.
The jersey, because they extended. Safety became the huge thing over the years that I played. It was a super physical game. Players would use their helmets, spear and do all kinds of things. Now, they with that CTE and the concussions and all this, they've added more rules for player safety as the game has gone on, and it's good for players.
Sure,
it's a better game, and players adjust. But it's tough on officials who came up letting them play one way, and now you have to change yourself too, because they've added a lot of things that used to not be fouls.
Right. I was asking Pat a couple of weeks ago about the instant replay. And I said, that's got to be tough for an official, because you look at these NFL players, they're huge, they're strong, they're incredibly fast. Those plays are happening, a mile a minute, so fast. And then it's like, boom, 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 it's done. And then now we're going to go look at an instant replay and slow it down frame by frame and judge whether or not you did a good enough job in that split second.
And then, they've added, officials to be analysts, to tell their opinion.
Sure.
So, sometimes they support the guy and sometimes they don't. So it's difficult. It's difficult. That's a added dimension to the game we didn't have, when I started, but I ended up with that. And I have to mention too, I think gambling's affecting the game in terms of officials being held accountable by people who bet. More people complain about calls, and, sometimes you'll hear more things about this wasn't called or this shouldn't be. And I think it's all due to the gambling aspect of the game,
It's a very good point. For a long time, the NFL was completely adamant against it.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they're FanDuel and DraftKings are all big sponsors.
Yeah, they're
right?
all partners with them.
Yeah, so I mean that makes it kind of
And the other
tough.
thing is social media stuff. Pat realized, as I went on, I had some tough games, and sometimes the referee, I'm the white hat, I don't make the call. All I do is announce it.
Right.
But it's me who gets the blame.
Sure.
It's Pete Morelli.
Right.
It's not Steve Smith over there who actually he made the call or blew the call or whatever. It's so, and then social media gets you. People track you down, and you get threatened. And different things. So that's difficult.
So that's a big difference between today's game and game 20 years ago.
Yeah, the social
right?
media aspect.
Social media, the betting.
The betting, the people coming after you more.
Wow.
Yeah, stuff.
What sometimes I'll watch a game, I'll see a flag get thrown, then they all go and huddle, right? The referees will huddle, and then next thing they'll go, there's no flag. Tell me a little bit around what goes on there.
Well, it's you work together as a crew, and you want people to, we used to say, do your job and then help your partner. So you'd want somebody, if somebody throws a flag and someone else has a good view of it, let's say blocking the back as an example. Blocking the back is a tough call at high speed. Another guy might see it and said it was on the shoulder. So we would get together, and as a referee, I had to decide who was right. You always go with the calling official because who is primary, listen to him. But the other guy would, who comes in and says, I don't think so. Then you let them work it out a little bit, and then you decide, who you're going to go with. You want to get the call right. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to get the call right.
Right.
And most of the time, we are right. So you want to work together as a crew, Yeah.
Gotcha.
Pete, talk about the field goal that you had in.
Yeah. Well, that's a huge example. The one that we had in Baltimore. End of the game, it's Baltimore playing Cleveland in Baltimore. It's a divisional game. It's the end of the year. I think if Cleveland wins, they make the playoffs, and Baltimore wins, they're going on. But it's a huge rivalry game. That division's hard.
Right.
Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, they don't like each other a lot.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we're last play of the game. Cleveland's down by 3 points, and they're kicking about a 50-yard field goal. Let's say that. My job behind the kicker is watch kicker and holder, no action on him, and pretty much that's it. So we have two guys, under the goalpost. So they kick the ball, last play of the game, and it hits. I see it hit the top and comes back. The two officials, one comes out and goes touchdown. The other guy comes out and just stares at him. No, he actually is opposite. One guy comes out and goes incomplete. And the other guy's just staring at him. The crowd in Baltimore cheers. Incomplete, thinks they missed the field goal. Game's over, they win. So I'm running in, and I know I've been taught there's a problem. These two guys are talking. Now, the easiest thing for two guys to do is to signal. They mirror each other. They both signal the same. Well, this one guy didn't signal incomplete. So I run in, and I ask them. They're both great officials. Both had worked Super Bowls. They're very, been around, so they got expertise. They're not like a brand new rookie out there. And I asked what happened. And the one guy said, hit the upright. It ended up in the end zone. It's incomplete. The other guy said, no, it hit the upright, but it bounced beyond and hit the back extension and then ricocheted back. This is rare. The rule is because they have cameras and things. Anytime a ball crosses the goalpost, it's a good field goal. Now I have to decide who am I going to believe.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't use replay. At that time, replay wasn't allowed. Now it's allowed to review that type of play, but you couldn't then. So I listened to them both, and I said, no one would make up this story, And so I said, I'm going with you. I clicked on my mic and said, after further discussion, the ball hit the top upright, hit the back extension. It's a good field goal. Had to bring all the teams back out. They tied the game.
Oh, man.
Now we're going to overtime. So we do the flip. And that time it was who wins the toss, who scores first. Cleveland won the toss, went down and kicked the field goal, won the game. So they went from losing the game to winning the game. I got a call from the commissioner, so thanks for saving us, in that game. But it was just, I had my feeling was to go with a guy who would make up that story,
Right.
But thank God he watched it all the way through. I think the other guy saw it hit and then took his eye off of it. And just saw the ball end up in the end zone.
You want to talk about some guts because now you got 50,000 Raven fans raving mad at you.
I had to go get that coach, who was Bellick at the time, and he wasn't too happy to see me and say, we got to go back out and finish this game. He went from a win to,
right.
And then they ended up losing.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was interesting.
What a story. So Pat, I'm going to get you involved on this one. Pete, I've watched sports as long as I can remember. I'm a little guy, and all my years of coaching on the sidelines as a high school football coach. I was once at a high school playoff game in Placer, and I saw a student go streaking down the middle of the field. And at the moment it happened, I thought, boy, this crowd isn't too smart because both teams are huddled up, and suddenly I heard a big cheer like something happened, and then I realized there's a streaker just streaking down the middle of the field. His buddies were like in a cul-de-sac at the end of the field and were waiting for him, and he hopped in the car and they took off and everybody's laughing. What's the craziest thing you've seen in all your years of sports, of stuff happening?
That's an interesting question. We've seen the streaker, and basically we just stopped the game and let it go. I can't really think of anything particularly, that would reach that level of anything that's peculiar or that interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still streakers, Pat?
My best story is doing junior college, and back then you had all off-campus coaches, and I forget who the two teams were, but it was a hot day, and the team was losing, and these two assistant coaches didn't disagree. They kept disagreeing with each other, offense, defense. Next thing you know, they're going to blows on the sidelines. That was my
the coaches are going at it.
The two coaches are going at it. So that was interesting. So nobody's stricken on the field, but two coaches put the fisticuffs to each other. So
now
that was pretty good.
That is pretty good. Now, is there any protocol that referees have for that, or they just go, "Hey, let's let them figure that out"? Or?
Oh no, yeah, the legal take care of that.
Those
guys.
Yeah. We'll stick the CIF on them and just stay out of it.
So at that point, we went to the head coach, and one guy ended up leaving, and one stayed. But I don't know what the outcome was, but that was like I came out of left field. So that was the most funniest thing I've ever seen. Strange.
Wow. Well, we're just about out of time. Before we go, I can't tell you enough, both of you. Thank you so much for coming down today.
It's our pleasure.
Sharing these great stories with us. I told Pat we started this podcast. I didn't even think I'd be doing this. I was a football coach my entire career. And then when I got done coaching, they kind of roped me into doing this radio thing. I got a lot of positive feedback on the play-by-play radio thing. Members of the community said, you need to start a podcast. And so I started doing that. And when the season comes, it's going to be every week on what's going on with the football team and who they're playing and how they're doing and all that stuff. And so in the midst of that, we got to come up with some stuff. So being able to have, two incredible legendary guys like both of you here is a big boost for us. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for coming down and doing this.
It's our honor. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. And what you're doing for the high school is awesome.
Thank you. So, folks, we are all out of time. I want to thank all of you out there for listening. Thanks to Pat Morelli. Thanks to Pete Morelli for taking the time out of their busy schedules to be here today. Remember, if you have any questions that you would like for us to address or have any comments that you would like for us to air in a future episode, follow us on Instagram at Let's Talk Football with Coach Val, or shoot us an email at gilbertvaltierra@gmail.com. Until next time, we are out.
And it's intercepted. It's intercepted by number 22. That's Clifton. He's got the left edge. Turns on the Jets. Still on his feet. Touchdown, Calaveras. What a play. Up to a running back. That's Ferrante over to the right side. He comes back up the middle. He's got room. One man to beat. He turns on the Jets. There he goes. Touchdown, Calaveras. What a play.